Breaking tonight, just 6 days before America votes, another bombshell drops on Hillary Clinton's campaign. This one involving serious details of the FBI's investigation into the Clinton Foundation and talk of a possible indictment. News that Mrs. Clinton's supporters fear could alter the course of this election or her presidency, should she win on November 8th. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. While Hillary Clinton's server scandal has dominated the headlines, Fox News now has confirmation tonight from two sources familiar with the FBI probe that a separate investigation, this one into the Clinton Foundation, not the email scandal, but the Clinton Foundation, including allegations of pay to play, has now taken a, quote, very high priority at the FBI. What's more, this investigation appears to be far more expansive than previously reported. Sources also telling Fox News' own Bret Baier that these two investigations will continue no matter the outcome of the election next week, and Bret reporting that these agents are likely to continue to try to push to get an indictment. That's the language he is using. In moments, we'll be joined by former New York City Mayor and Trump surrogate Rudy Giuliani, as well as New York City Council Speaker and Hillary Clinton supporter Melissa Mark Viverito. But we begin tonight with our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, reporting from Washington, who has been saying for months now that there is a separate FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation, which others were loath to report and which was denied to you repeatedly, but you had it. And sure enough, tonight, we're hearing some stunning details about it, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Megyn. There is new evidence tonight that the FBI's investigation of the Clinton Foundation is not dead, with two sources close to the FBI telling Fox's Bret Baier late today that new records from WikiLeaks and other emails are strengthening their case. The sources who would not speak on the record said evidence of pay-to-play will lead to more witness interviews. FBI agents are quietly working the Clinton Foundation case in D.C. and New York City. And multiple sources say the Justice Department has been tapping the brakes by blocking access to a grand jury. As part of its ongoing investigation, Fox News was first to report in January that the FBI email probe had expanded to look at whether the intersection of Clinton Foundation work and State Department business under Secretary Clinton may have violated public corruption laws. While State Department emails and WikiLeaks now show evidence of coordination, in January, Hillary Clinton tried to dismiss the reporting as rumor.
Is that story true?
Absolutely not. It's an unsourced, irresponsible, claim that has no basis, and it is something that really is without merit and should not have any influence whatsoever in this nominating process.
Three sources tell Fox News tonight that computers belonging to Clinton's personal attorney, Cheryl Mills, there on the left, and aide Heather Samuelson were not destroyed as part of an immunity deal with the Justice Department. Both lawyers are key to the case because they decided which Clinton emails were government work, deleting the rest. Those computers, we're told, are in evidence and still available to Foundation investigators. And while the review of Anthony Weiner's computer is not complete, Fox News is told that there does appear to be a lot of new stuff and a strong belief among agents that classified material is in play, Megyn.
Wow. Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Joining us now with more, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. He's a Trump surrogate and former federal prosecutor. Mr. Mayor, good to see you. This is...
Good to see you.
I mean, this is a separate thing now. I mean, we've been focused on the email investigation, which Director Comey just reopened. That happened last Friday. This is something different, where you've got two sources familiar with the FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation talking about pushing for an indictment in the absence of obstruction, they say.
Well, this was the one that I always thought was clearer. I mean, as a former Associate Attorney General and U.S. Attorney, I could make this case in about 2 months. I mean, well, I'll give you one example, a nice clear one, UBS, right? UBS gives the Clintons $660,000 for the foundation, $30 million loan, and a $1.5 million speaking fee for Bill Clinton. And Hillary Clinton travels from Washington, D.C. to Geneva to meet with the IRS, to ask the IRS to go easy on UBS in the turnover of identities that the IRS wanted of American taxpayers who were evading taxes. IRS ends up with only 4,000 of the 56,000 identities they were attempting to get. To me, I can make a bribery case out of that. She didn't go travel to Geneva without. Now, if there's an email that connects the two, then you just don't have a bribery case. You have a bribery case that you can't even defend.
I mean, you are a former federal prosecutor. You've been around this block. How does it work? I mean, how is it that just now we're a couple days out from the election? This would have been good to know a few weeks ago on the record.
Because my former assistant, Jim Comey, made the wrong decision in July.
But that was on a separate track. I mean, he's taken his beating on that. But what about this one? Why wasn't this disclosed?
You have outraged FBI agents that talk to me. They are outraged at the injustice. They're outraged at being turned down by the Justice Department to open a grand jury. They are convinced that Loretta Lynch has corrupted the Justice Department. You've got people in the Justice Department in charge of this investigation who are defense lawyers for Clinton people. I mean, this is about as outrageous a corruption of the Justice Department as I've ever seen.
So let me just ask you, Mr. Mayor, so you think this is, because we've been reporting on dissension inside the FBI, alleged.
Oh, it's real.
And you think this is FBI agents or someone affiliated with them just getting this out there because they're saying people need to know. They need to know what Comey disclosed last week, and they need to know this too.
These are men and women who swear to uphold the law. They're not a bunch of slimy Washington politicians like the Obama administration and the people Clinton would bring in. And the reality is they are outraged at what they have seen. Mrs. Clinton has violated easily 20 or 30 federal laws. I could outline them for you. I could show you how I could prosecute them and convict her. Everybody around her has taken the Fifth Amendment, taken immunity. Who's she going to bring in the White House with?
Those immunity deals may not be worth the paper they're printed on now, according to this report. Because if they lied to get them, then they don't stand. But let me ask you, let me ask you, what sense does it make if you've got Director Comey, who's willing to take the risk he took last Friday, to come out there and say, I'm reopening the email thing. I found some stuff. It's not good. I'm going to look into it. Going to get a warrant, but I just want you to know I found it. We're going to do an investigation. How would that same guy not disclose something this big happening on another track?
I can't speak for Jim. I knew Jim when he was a young assistant U.S. attorney of mine. I don't know what happened to him. I know that way back in July when I read that memo, that's a prosecutorial memo. It's just the opposite of what he said. Every reasonable prosecutor would have prosecuted that case in a second. I won convictions on half the evidence that the FBI had gotten in July. And he has an FBI, Jim has an FBI, that's in revolt right now. And I think that's one of the reasons why he came out and did what he did, to try to control his agents, who, after all, are true law enforcement people. And what they see is about the slimiest stuff that we've seen in Washington since probably Teapot Dome. This is worse than Watergate. They have corrupted the State Department, pay for play, and they've corrupted the Justice Department. You can't go much further than that, Megyn.
Mr. Mayor, good to see you.
Thank you.
Joining me now with more, New York City Council Speaker and Hillary Clinton supporter, Melissa Mark Viverito. Good to see you tonight. So can we just start with that, because there are conflicting reports about whether the FBI is in fact divided and there's low morale, as some claim, and whether that case that Comey declined to prosecute in July was in fact prosecutable.
Look, I think that it's fascinating that we're seeing all of this emerge 6 days out, 2 weeks out of an important election. And we have a candidate in Donald Trump who is on the precipice, on the abyss of really a stunning failure. And so I believe that when you have a Hillary Clinton, when you have a Clinton Foundation that has been in the public eye for many, many years, and not decades, that has disclosed every private donation, that has 40 years of tax records made available for for transparency for everyone to see, versus a candidate who hides behind not releasing his tax forms, or who's charitable, quote-unquote foundation is a scam.
Well, they may
And
also be getting investigated. They may also be. But let me just speak to you about that.
It's interesting to see that this is coming out now. We have a candidate.
Well, we know why.
Yes.
We know why Friday's news came out when it did. I mean, Director Comey's office has spoken to that. They say they just got Anthony Weiner's computer. I mean, it all roots point back to Weiner.
Before having a search warrant, before there being any sort of verification, whether or not.
Let's not condemn Director Comey's motives, because
Megyn, on both the Republican
all the Democrats
and the Democratic
defended
side,
him as the second coming back in July when he declined to prosecute. Now they don't like him. But this is about the other piece of the investigation, which is in the Clinton Foundation. And if these two sources familiar with the FBI investigation, who have now spoken with Fox News, are right, this is a, quote, very high priority within the FBI. There is a, quote, avalanche of new information coming in every day on this investigation, that these two women may have lost their immunity now, that their devices are being exploited at this moment, and that this investigation is much, much more extensive than previously reported.
They're accusations, and I don't believe they have foundation or merit. And it is, again, interesting that 6 days out of this most important election cycle that this is coming out. When this conversation about the Clinton Foundation has been in the public eye for years at this point in this campaign. So I cast a lot of doubt on this. Again, we have the most capable candidate in Hillary Clinton, who has 40 years of tax records online, where every donation to the Clinton Foundation, independent watchdog groups have talked about the good work.
Yeah,
and
but we've learned some things through WikiLeaks. Just in recent weeks.
We will never verify the information on WikiLeaks.
I know, Russia, they're fake, I know. But nothing has been specifically disputed.
Well,
none, not one.
You've also indicated, you just alluded to, we have an investigation into Trump and some of his, the high-ranking members of his campaign and their links to possible Russia and any sort of communication. That was not disclosed. So it's incredibly interesting.
That's his old guy, Paul Manafort, who's no longer with him.
It's incredibly interesting that all of the information that is being leaked on the side of the FBI happens to be about Clinton and nothing about Trump.
Well,
that will cast a little bit of doubt and concern.
But that doesn't mean the investigation's not underway. Perhaps the leaking is inappropriate, but
and
that
there's
doesn't
an investigation underway for the Trump campaign as well.
You understand as well as I do that the American people, they don't want to elect somebody who might get indicted. And she's got now 2 tracks against her, the email investigation and the Clinton Foundation.
And Trump is being investigated on multiple tracks as well. His Trump school, his foundation. So there may be an indictment on his end as well. So this is not, but again, I believe that the information that has been leaked on Clinton is going to be found to be unfounded. She is the most highly qualified and the most transparent candidate that we have.
Transparent?
Yes. When you have
I got to leave it at that. I don't have time to take that one on, but it's great to see you. Thank you for being here. Well, President Obama today joined a growing list of top Democrats attacking FBI Director Jim Comey. And in moments, we'll speak with one of Director Comey's top advisors. This is a longtime friend of his, about what we should expect from the director next. What is Director Comey thinking? This man knows, and he'll tell us. Plus, we have new reports that the top official at Justice was sharing was sharing inside information with the Clinton campaign during the email investigation from his private email account. Former DOJ attorney J. Christian Adams is here on that. And then 2 dramatic state polls dropping in just the last few hours. We'll show you why Team Trump is thrilled about what they say. Wait until you hear what's happening when we come right back.
Next Tuesday, we will have one last glorious surprise for the pundits, the politicians, and the special interests when we win and return the power back to the people. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
The Kelly File.
Democrats now slamming FBI Director James Comey is growing yet again, and they are not holding back. Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid, the same man who called Director Comey a, quote, fair, impartial director back in July, actually wrote the director a letter this week suggesting, quote, through your partisan actions, you may have broken the law. New York Senator Chuck Schumer, who once called Director Comey a, quote, towering figure at justice, is now telling Bloomberg, quote, I do not have confidence in him any longer, and suggesting the director's decision last Friday was, quote, appalling. On top of that, earlier this afternoon, both the former House Speaker and arguably President Obama himself joined the chorus of critics now going after Director Comey.
Maybe he's not in the right job. I think that we have to just get through this election and just see what the casualties are along the way.
We don't operate on innuendo. We don't operate on incomplete information. We don't operate on leaks.
Joining me now, Columbia Law professor Daniel Richman. He's also a policy advisor to FBI Director James Comey. Great to see you, Professor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So you know Comey, you've known him for a long time. You used to practice law together.
Yes.
Okay. And you say he's a straight shooter, and you're a friend of his and an advisor of sorts. What do you make of the piling on now? Nancy Pelosi in particular, like, maybe he can't do the job. Maybe it's time for a change.
What people seem to forget is that whatever he did would have political ramifications. Either you stay silent and don't correct what people seem to think, which was that an investigation was complete, and you let that thought go to people as they, let's say, vote, or maybe, let's say, as they move into running the government next year. Or you speak, and you speak as little as possible. I don't think he's unaware of the fact that there's an election going on. I don't think he's trying to influence the election, but either silence or speaking is going to implicate the election, and he's aware of that and did what he felt he had to do.
Is this hard on him? Do you think, he's a human being. He seems like a real sort of Joe Friday kind of, law enforcement official, but is this hard on him to have this much pile on, including today from the president? We don't deal in innuendo. We don't deal in leaks.
I think Jim is used to being piled on. That comes with the territory. I don't read what the president said as part of the piling on, frankly. I think what the president said is people thought the investigation was complete. It turns out the president was wrong on that. There is an investigation that was said to have been complete but is going on, and that's all that the director said a few days ago.
A lot of people believe this is not Comey, he's not in charge, that Loretta Lynch is controlling him like a puppet, and she's the puppeteer, and she's not going to pursue anything on Hillary come hell or high waters, and Comey basically has to do what she says. Is that true?
I've actually never heard that particular allegation.
Trust me.
It's an odd story to be spinning, to think that he is the puppet of somebody who, in all likelihood, will probably not be there shortly.
And he will be, presumably.
He will be. It's a 10-year term for a reason. Part of what we want in an FBI director is, come what may and come what brickbats are thrown his way, put your head down and make nonpartisan decisions, even as you recognize that people are going to spin them one way or another. That's what he did, and I think he's right.
Well, what about, people think it wasn't adequate in part because new stuff turned up on Huma's home computer. Everybody said, wait, how could that not have been picked up in the first swoop by the FBI?
I only know from what I read in the press report, but I gather from them that she didn't even know that this was being swooped up. One of the sad things about many of us is we back up the computers. We don't really focus on it, at least from what I gather in the reports. She was backing it up.
Last question. If the evidence justifies an indictment, if he finds evidence of intent, which he wasn't satisfied was there back in July, do you believe this man would be prepared to recommend charges be brought against Hillary Clinton?
Of course. If the facts change, the position changes. I don't think it takes very much work on the part of someone like Jim to do that.
It's great to see you, Professor. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
And just hours ago, the Justice Department defending itself over another growing controversy. The latest WikiLeaks dump reveals that top DOJ officials reached out to the Clinton campaign during the email investigation in an effort to help her, one guy in particular. Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry has the details. Ed?
Megyn, this new email is raising conflict of interest questions tonight because it shows Peter Kadzik gave Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman at least a little heads up about some of the details of Clinton's email probe. Kadzik is a college buddy of John Podesta and represented him during the Monica Lewinsky drama. Now Kadzik is a top official at the Justice Department. He runs congressional affairs and wrote in 2015 that the Clinton camp should be on the lookout for, quote, an oversight hearing today where the head of our civil division at Justice will testify, likely to get questions on State Department email. Another filing in the FOIA case went in last night or will go in this AM. That indicates it will be a while, 2016, before the State Department posts the emails. Podesta shared this with other campaign officials along with a note. Additional chances for mischief, presumably by Republicans. The Justice Department is downplaying all of this since Kadzik's email focused on a public hearing on the Hill and a public filing. And to be fair to Podesta, there have been some Republicans suggesting Kadzik really is not running the show in terms of the Abedin probe.
though that did not stop Donald Trump today from declaring it proves his point about draining the swamp.
One of the top Department of Justice officials involved in the email investigation, Assistant Attorney General Peter Kazik, is a close associate of John Podesta. These are the people that want to run our country, folks.
However, Kazik is only involved in the Huma Abedin probe because he was updating lawmakers as the head of congressional affairs. He is by no means calling the shots on the actual investigation. Although if his contact with Podesta was so harmless in 2015, why didn't he put it on his Justice Department email, which would have become a public record? He instead communicated by Gmail, and now WikiLeaks made it public anyway. Megyn?
Ed, thank you. Joining me now, J. Christian Adams, a former DOJ attorney who received the department's award for outstanding service. Great to see you, Chris. So so he took a little trip outside of his lane because he has nothing to do with the division that was investigating her, but really wanted them to know what was happening in the investigation. Do I have it right?
Yeah, he's basically the congressional message boy. And instead, what he was doing was tipping off the campaign that a pleading was about to be filed. A pleading, Megyn, that's confidential information. When a Justice Department lawyer tells a third party that we're about to file a pleading, they're breaking the rules. That's unethical. If I did that when I was back at the voting section, alert the Trump campaign we're about to do something, I would have lost my job.
But they say the hearing is public information, the briefing dates are public information, so how bad was this?
Well, the briefing dates weren't public. What they fail to realize is in the email, he doesn't even think the pleading was necessarily filed yet. That's important. He said this is maybe filed in the morning. So he was tipping off Podesta that an important document was going to be filed that basically gave the Hillary campaign the script on what state was going to do with all of these emails.
So it was, the advantage to Hillary in knowing 12 hours before, what, was there one?
Oh, of course. 12 hours is an eternity in the Clinton response machine. If you look at the subsequent emails, Megyn, they're going back and forth on how to spin this. They're immediately going to work, whereas the Republicans up on the Hill didn't even know what was coming. So it gives an advantage when you get 12 hours to deal with something this explosive.
What's amazing is, and you can always tell how people feel when you see their response. So Justice was, of course, asked about this. Like, hey, why is this dude giving a heads up, this Kazik, why is he giving a heads up about anything to the Clinton campaign? He doesn't work. He works for us. He doesn't work for Hillary Clinton or for her campaign. So what's he doing? And Justice said, well, he sent that email in his personal capacity, not in work hours. That's a quote. That's DOJ on the record today, Chris. And then went on to say, it is not department practice to provide any strategic guidance to any campaign. And then when asked whether his behavior was acceptable to Justice, they did not answer.
They made a mistake. They should have said he's the Assistant Attorney General. He has the ability to waive privileges, to waive confidences. Instead, they made it worse for themselves by saying it was on his private Gmail. That violates federal records laws. Those are Justice Department emails on a Gmail account. So they doubled down and they made it worse with that excuse.
You know what the thing about this is? Not only do we see these and have questions now about what was going on between these individuals, but how many times is this happening out there that weren't captured by WikiLeaks? These people emailed somebody other than Podesta, who's the one who got hacked, and so we don't know about it.
Well, we do know actually about a second instance in the WikiLeaks dump today of another Clinton campaign worker getting this tip-off, and it was from the day before that there was going to be an important pleading filed in the email case in front of the federal court. So it's coming from two different directions, which doesn't surprise me because these guys are like Democrat operatives on the taxpayer dime.
They work for the woman who would ultimately decide whether to bring charges. That's who those two were technically employed by. And their boss has to decide whether to bring charges, and they're tipping off the Clinton campaign as to key dates and strategic maneuvers in the case that did become public, but as you point out, do not appear to have been public at the time they were disclosed. J. Christian Adams, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Megyn.
Well, breaking news tonight on two big poll swings in two critical states. Have you taken a look at the latest polls in Virginia and Colorado? Yes, Virginia. Steyerwalt and Perino will tell us what this means with just 6 days to go. Next. Plus, new warnings tonight about possible trouble at polling places come Election Day. We'll show you what they're worried about. Don't go away.
You have to vote. We have to get out there. We don't want to blow it, that I can tell you, because we have worked very hard, all of us, you, me, everybody, and it's very historic what's happening.
Every 15 minutes, Fox News headlines 24/7, channel 115.
Breaking tonight with 6 days to go, we just got some big polling news from 2 of Hillary Clinton's so-called firewall states. We'll have that for you in a moment. But first, we go to the campaign trail, where Mrs. Clinton is making a big push in Arizona. The polling average in the Grand Canyon state shows Trump up by 3 points there. Mr. Trump is campaigning in Florida, meantime, where he held a rally earlier in Pensacola. The Florida polls show Trump with a lead of less than 1 point, pointing to a barn burner of a race next Tuesday. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is reporting tonight from Orlando. Carl?
Hi, Megyn. When you look at all these polls, it shows that Trump definitely has some momentum and that Hillary Clinton is either stalled or maybe even losing ground. But it's really important also to look at the trend lines as well as the averages, which suggests that, well, Clinton still is in pretty good shape, and Donald Trump still has a little bit more surging and a little bit more momentum necessary. There's also a question that comes up about whether or not he has spent enough money and his organization is prepared for this. For the last 10 months, there's been a steady worry among the Republicans that his organization wasn't being built out the way it's necessary to compete in the general election. Because of the surge that he's had, he might be able to make up what, frankly, was a demonstrable deficit in terms of the number of paid staffers, the number of volunteers, the number of headquarters, the number of ads run, and the number of dollars spent. Trump said today that he's going to spend $25 million in the next 6 days on 13 specific battleground states, which include places like Michigan and Pennsylvania, where he's been losing in the polls, in Virginia, where he's been behind, in some cases, close to double digits. Those are now back on Trump's table, and the polls have narrowed in those states significantly. But ground game really matters. It isn't sexy. Trump has been definitely cashing in on the WikiLeaks. Today he was going after the, quote, collusion between the State Department, the Justice Department, and the Clinton campaign. But he also knows that he has to be a little bit more human. And tonight he suggested, as he walked out on stage, he said, calm down, Donald. Said it aloud, be cool, Donald. Which is something that we have never seen from Donald Trump, who always sort of prides himself on being almost bulletproof and constantly sort of emitting this strength. He's tired. It's the sprint, and they're excited on the Trump campaign because things seem to be going their way. It's still going to be very close. Megyn?
Wow. Carl, thank you. Well, our friends over at RealClearPolitics.com have a very clear way of looking at this race. What do you get when you force a toss-up state toward the candidate winning in the polls? Today's state-by-state polling shows Mrs. Clinton winning the White House by a slim 8 electoral votes. What's turning heads tonight, though, is the fact that the numbers 2 weeks ago suggest she would have won by 128. So she would have had a lot more to spare. Joining me now, co-hosts of I'll Tell You What, Perino and Steyerwalt, right here on Fox News on Sundays at 5. That's Chris Steyerwalt and Dana Perino. Dana's the author of Let Me Tell You About Jasper, too, How My Best Friends Became America's Dog. Okay, this is amazing, right? Virginia appears back in play. Virginia, where she was ahead 12 points in early October, he now leads, right? Is that, I'm just looking at my information, just coming in. Here it is right there. Just read what's on the board. Look, he now leads. He's got 3 points over her in Virginia. Steyerwalt, let me start with you. The reporting out of Major Garrett tonight is saying they're stunned at Trump Tower at their own internal poll showing Virginia's back in play. Trump and Mike Pence making plans to get down there. Do you believe it?
Well, if you ain't saying good stuff about your own internal polls, you're doing it wrong.
But that's not internal. No. He's saying their internal confirmed this Hampton University poll.
I would say this. The Colorado poll is very interesting to me because I don't think Colorado has been polled nearly enough in this cycle. Virginia has been carpet bombed with polling in this cycle. This is one poll out of this is 1 out of 5 that have been taken over the basically commensurate period of time. This is the only one that shows Trump with the lead, and the rest of them show Clinton leads 5 to 10 points ahead of this. Is this an indicator of something that's happening for Trump? Are they catching something that other people aren't? I don't know, because as you get down to the bottom of the barrel here, and as you get down to the end, you are looking for any sort of ping pong ball that goes pinging and ponging around this place.
We're within hours of the election, and potentially Dana seeing I know, I don't like to do math. 12 plus 3 is 15. A 15-point swing in a state as critical as Virginia with 13 electoral votes. I mean, if that's real, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's reason for the Trump people to be excited. I think that obviously the news, as you've been reporting today, like I worked at Justice Department for a year, then I worked at the White House for about 6. I've never seen anything like that in terms of the deluge of terrible news for somebody, and in this case, it's the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. I think that's huge. So the news cycle is certainly favoring Donald Trump. The question, I think, is what Carl Cameron asked, which is, can they get enough of a ground game there to make sure their voters who are so enthusiastic get to the polls in a larger number than hers? That's where the math comes in, certainly. I remember months and months ago, Donald Trump said that the organization is overrated. And I asked
Look at my rallies.
Yeah, and I asked David Plouffe about that. I said, does he have a point there? And he says, well, maybe, but I wouldn't want to take a chance.
Starwell, you're focused on the Colorado poll. Why do you think that's the interesting one? They're tied now, according to the latest poll. She was up 4.
Because I think Virginia's fried like a peanut, but Colorado has been under-polled. People have taken for granted that this is a Democratic state now. There have been Trump leads in polls earlier here. Colorado is in play. And remember, Trump needs to flip a big blue state. Now, Colorado is not quite big enough, but you put that together with Nevada, you put that together with Iowa, you put that together with Ohio, which are all states where Trump has polled consistently well, and you start to see an alternate pathway for Donald Trump. This Colorado poll, maybe the sample's a little whiter than it ought to be, maybe.
Whiter or whiter?
Whiter, like me. Maybe too many people of pallor in the sample. But either way, I think the race in Colorado is a heck of a lot closer than people have assumed.
How important is, with just days to go, this feeling that he's got momentum and that she is in trouble, and by that I mean not only, campaign trouble, but legal trouble?
It feels really big to me. And that I am not basing this on a poll. I'm just saying from my gut instinct that if you look at that, yes, she has momentum. Yes, she has some early voting on her side in some states. But to me, this is such a big deal that I can imagine a scenario where he definitely wins the popular vote. The Electoral College then maybe becomes in question. I know you don't believe
He's mocking you. Off camera, mocking.
Is mocking me. But
so mean.
On that night, someone will buy me.
We've been having this debate since May, and I think you're wrong, but that's all right.
Can you have it here since nobody watches that Sunday night show? Oh my God, I'm turning into a Riley.
It wasn't even on Sunday night. It was on our podcast.
Why is that not possible? Why the mocking?
Yeah, Chris.
It is certainly possible. I would never submit that it is not possible. What I'm saying is, some of these polls are right, some of these polls are wrong. There's a picture of the nation right now that says that Hillary Clinton is ahead by a substantial margin and is going to win the election. There's another one that says that Donald Trump is surging through, and we're seeing it in a couple polls here and there. One of these two things is right. I doubt we're going to have a split decision.
I'll tell you what, she's probably delighted that this election is not happening on December 8th. It's like already you hear her. She's like, vote early, vote immediately. Okay, I gotta go. Good to see you both.
Bye.
Thank you.
Whew. Coming up, I just want to tell you that something's just hit on the Wall Street Journal, which is going to be big news tomorrow too. It follows up, but it's a little different than the Brett Baer reporting that we just got about a split between the FBI and Justice and some secret recordings. We're going to get into that in a minute. Also coming up, new warnings about possible trouble at polling places on Election Day. Former Congressman Pete Hoekstra and Richard Fowler are here to discuss. Don't go away on a busy news night. Tonight, we just got some dramatic reporting from the Wall Street Journal showing what appears to be a serious split between some investigators at the FBI and some of the more senior officials there, along with the Justice Department on the other side. According to the Journal, owned by the same parent company as Fox News, agents at the Bureau thought it had enough evidence to launch an investigation into the Clinton Foundation a year ago. But senior officials at the Department of Justice appear to have shut them down. Joining me now is Pete Hoekstra, a former congressman and national security advisor to the Trump campaign, and Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor. Great to see you.
Good to be here, Megyn.
So just bear with me, because this is just hitting. And the headline is, Secret Recordings Fueled FBI Feud in Clinton Probe. The reporting by Devlin Barrett and Christopher Matthews is that the FBI secretly recorded conversations of a suspect in a public corruption case. This person was talking about the alleged deals that the Clintons made. And the FBI investigator said this is worth checking out, that this goes well beyond what we saw in Clinton Cash by Peter Schweitzer. This is something worse or more. And we're pushing hard to look into this. Apparently, prosecutors at the DOJ said it's hearsay, it's weak, it doesn't warrant aggressive tactics like presenting the evidence to a grand jury, and the person secretly recorded was not inside the Clinton Foundation. And thus a disagreement unfolded between some FBI investigators, and according to this, Justice was on the other side of the disagreement, and some FBI senior officials were on the other side of the disagreement. But it appears that Mr. McCabe of the FBI, this is the same guy, I think, whose wife ran for the state senate in Virginia, right, who got the big donation from Terry McAuliffe, friend of the Clintons and governor there, he was apparently defending his agents, saying, objecting, saying, you're telling me I need to shut down a validly predicated investigation? And Justice said, no, you don't need to. So that's something that perhaps rehabilitates Mr. McCabe in the eyes of some of his critics who thought he was too Team Clinton. I know it's confusing, but the bottom line for the viewers appears to be that some FBI agents really felt this thing was worth pursuing. And on top of the news we got tonight, Congressman, about some agents saying they believe there might be enough to indict, your reaction?
This is not at all surprising, Megyn. I mean, for the last number of months, and maybe now it goes back a year, and this may have been where this all started from, is that FBI agents, they are committed to doing the right thing. They see evidence or at least an indication that there might have been some wrongdoing. They start pursuing it, and then they start asking to have the tools, give us the opportunity to get warrants, subpoenas, and present evidence to a grand jury, and they are shut down. They want to get to the bottom of these things, whether it's the Clinton Foundation, whether it's the emails. It appears to be a pattern of protecting the Clintons, and this just infuriated and started creating this great dissension within the FBI because they are believing they are not entitled or unable to do their job. And everything that seems to have come out over the last number of months seems to confirm that.
I've never seen so many leaks out of the FBI or Justice. This is big. We're going to continue on the other side of the break and get Richard's reaction. Don't go away. And Richard, what the Journal is saying is that the officials at Justice sent a message to all offices to stand down on the investigation into the Clinton alleged corruption, and the FBI agents were ticked off about it and didn't appreciate that because they thought there was something there. Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. I think this comes down to two words: prosecutorial discretion. It is the job of the prosecutors to determine what will make it to a grand jury and what will make it to court. Based on what we saw, mind you, I wasn't in the room, neither were you. You're a lawyer, counselor. And we just don't know what was in this evidence as to why they didn't think it would make it to trial or why they said this investigation should stop. But with that being said, I got to tell you, this is a leak-a-palooza between the DOJ and the FBI. I think they're racing to see who's going to leak first.
They never leak.
This is unprecedented in an election with just 6 days left for all this leaking to take place.
What about that, Congressman? You know,
Megyn,
you've been on the Hill for a long time. What about the leak-a-palooza?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing, Megyn, is there's total lack of confidence in Loretta Lynch, Peter Kadzik. You saw those emails come out today. What these FBI agents, and I think what America's screaming out for, this now requires a special prosecutor to go into there and have an independent view.
Richard, special prosecutor?
No. We just need the leaking to stop and for the American people to have a chance to see what all this leaking is about so they can actually go vote in 6 days.
Before I let you go, what do you think, Richard? Virginia now, Trump up 3.
I'm from Virginia. I was a Virginia delegate to the convention 4 years ago. I agree with Chris Stirewalt. Virginia is fried as a peanut for Hillary Clinton. There's no chance that Trump will win there. But this election's getting close. Megyn, on election night, I will be with you, and it's going to come down to Latino voters in places like Broward County, and Miami-Dade County, Florida, and Colorado.
Can't you just boil the peanut so it's not as bad for you? I think we're really disparaging that nut unfairly. Great to see you both. We'll be right back.
Good to see you, Megyn. Great, thanks.
Guy in the Kelly File who gave a killer graduation speech, the theme of which was, "You are not special." He was trying to convince today's millennials that being extraordinary was something they would have to prove to the world, not a given that the world would afford them. I loved it because it mirrored the philosophy my own parents raised us with. And in my new book, Settle for More, here it is. Yes, thank you, thank you. You will see, thank you. That's Sean Hannity. He feels it too. You'll see that I wasn't raised to believe that I was anything special at all. And that, as it turned out, was a great gift to me. See, I knew growing up that, what I was and what I wasn't good at, because nobody ever lied to me about my talents or the lack thereof. I wrote this book in part because I want people to see that coddling their kids into thinking they're amazing at everything is really quite damaging, not to mention dishonest and bad for the kid and the country. Anyway, I did eventually manage to find something I was pretty decent at. I'm doing it right now. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I know. And I have written all about that journey in my new memoir, Settle for More. It's a very personal book. It's revealing. It's been under an embargo. Basically, they would have to hurt you if you found it. The publisher is like, they had it like this. I first got it yesterday. No one has it, but you can have it delivered on November 15th if you order it now. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Settle for More. Check it out. Here's Sean.